Welcome back to TwoGunTerry and Friends. I'm TwoGunTerry, and today I'm going to go ahead and show you how to reassemble my 1022. But first, here's my intro. Okay, now let's find our firing pin spring. This is our little firing pin spring. And I'm looking for that roll pin that holds the firing pin in place. So we have the roll pin, the firing pin, and the firing pin spring. And our bolt. Let's go ahead and take this stuff out of the way now. Okay, first thing we're going to do, we're going to take this spring and we're going to drop it in. Now I've seen a couple different styles here. It depends on the type of bolt you have. The Ruger, the actual Ruger bolt, they have a little, it looks like a spatula, I call it. And this spring attaches to that spatula and it goes down inside and hooks into a groove that holds the spring in place towards the front of the bolt. In this kid bolt, there's a little cross pin right here, about halfway down the bolt. And that cross pin goes inside. Doesn't go through, there's nothing over here, but it does go down and through both sides of the firing pin groove. So that pin wants this spring on towards the back of the bolt. So I'm going to drop that in behind that spring, push it in place with my firing pin, and that way that spring again will catch right here on this notch and allow the firing pin to return to the ready position. Okay, before we go any further, here's my firing pin roll pin. Now we need to talk about lubricants. And I have 50 different lubricants here. Here's just a few. Lucas gun oil is what we're using these days. That's what I use all the time. We have Hoppy's gun oil. The older product, which used to be CLP, is now called Lucas, but we used to use CLP. And this is Hoppy CLP. CLP stands for Cleaner, Lubricant, and Preservation. Clean, Lube, Protect. So we're going to put these off to the side because I used the Lucas and I'm running low. But I'm going to put just a tiny bit alongside my firing pin. 2 little dots. I don't want too much in there because I don't want any gunk getting attached to the firing pin. And I'm just going to lube it up because it is metal on metal. And I'm going to drop that into the channel. I'm going to take these gloves off now because we cleaned everything we need to clean. Get rid of those. Get back to just my dirty hands. So the spring is sitting in here, about here somewhere. The firing pin, that back groove is hooked to the back of that spring, and this roll pin is going to go through that hole in the firing pin, and that allows the firing pin to move just that much, just that it travels just this much. Boom, that's it. It doesn't travel much at all. So let's go ahead and push that in place. And now I'm going to put the roll pin in. Let me get something to tap that with. Roll pins have to be hammered in. There we go. Okay, that looks good. Let me just find something to get a better purchase on that bad boy. A little bit more. Okay, the firing pin and the roll pin and the spring are all in place now, and again, working just fine. I don't know, now that it's clean, can you still see the firing pin coming out of there? I'm not sure what angle or if you're seeing it at all. But it just comes out a little bit, maybe a 1/16 of an inch. Just enough to strike the back of that bullet. That's why it's really important to keep it clean. All right, the next thing we're going to put back in now is the extractor. We have the Volquartsen Eagle Claw extractor and spring and plunger. I believe these are all Volquartsen parts. Could be Kid. I know the extractor is definitely a Eagle Claw extractor because I replaced it. All right, we have that clean. Put a little tiny bit of oil on the plunger. Like one little tiny micro dot. Take my Q-tip and rub it on there. Just enough so it can move. You don't want it to collect too much grime and gook in the oils. So here's the slot, which we cleaned very well. I'm going to drop the spring and the plunger in together. I'm going to grab my tool here. So now I'm using my Allen key, my 1/16 Allen key, to push back on this spring and extractor. Can you see that there? I'm just pushing it back in, and they'll get to a point where there's a groove that the back of this extractor can drop down into it, and the plunger will push up against this portion of the extractor to keep it closed. Put the extractor in the groove. And I pull my Allen key out, and there it is. Can you see that extractor there? How it moves so nicely? It's moving a lot better now, actually. It was all gummed up and filthy. Now you can't really see it, but it moves pretty good. Can you see that? Hopefully my fat finger is not in the way and you can see it. But that's all working on the side assembly there. The extractor is pushing into the plunger, which is being held, forced back by the spring. It's a pretty good tension on that, which makes sense. It has to lock around the cartridge. And I'm going to show it to you one more time up close here. You can see there's just a little bit of space under that hook. And that's where the back of the Rimfire cartridge locks onto. And then boom, when the gun fires, it sends the bolt backwards and pulls the spent casing out. And then, like I said earlier, the ejector, the casing hits the side of that and throws it out the side of the gun. Okay. All right, that was the hard part. Let me go ahead. Okay, so now our bolt, firing pin, and extractor are nice and clean, very lightly lubricated, and ready to go. Trigger has been thoroughly cleaned, and I really don't usually put too much oil in here. On occasion, including now, put a little drop on each side of the hammer. I'm going to work that in. Okay, and that's all I do. That's it for the trigger group. Our recoil rod and recoil spring are clean. I'm going to put a little oil in this. The guy gets a lot of oil. The recoil rod needs to be wet. So I put oil all over this guy because I want this to move so nice and gracefully. And I'm even going to put a little drop more on it when I put it back together again. We'll insert that there. And now we can go ahead and put it back together into the receiver. I'm going to lubricate both sides of the receiver and the bottom. Actually, it's the top. So let's go ahead and get a Q-tip. This is a little trick to save some oil. Wet a nice Q-tip. Get it nice and wet. For this particular part, you want to get it nice and wet. And I'm going to take the Q-tip and I'm going to rub it around the inside here. Just up and down the sides. You can even see, all the wear marks in there. So you know where you have to put oil. Wherever you see wear marks, it needs oil. So it's usually on both sides. And then I put it in the bottom as well. This time I'm running out of oil, but okay. And I run it up and down with my finger. Make sure everything's nice and wet. Some guns like to run dry. Mine likes to run nice and wet, so I get it nice and wet inside. Okay. Then in addition to that, I'll put some oil on the side of my bolt, both sides. And I'll make sure that those get nice and wet. Rub it on top. Anywhere there's going to be metal to metal contact, you want to get it nice and lubed. Okay, so we're ready to go ahead and put the bolt back into the receiver. So let's start with that right now. Step number 1, take the recoil rod and spring, insert it through the opening here. And remember, the pointy part goes into a little spot down here in the bottom of the receiver. So I'm going to come through the window like that, and I'm going to set it in position just like that. Okay? The next thing I'm going to do, I'm going to push this down and I'm going to get my charging handle in place. I want to have the notch facing up towards me. So I'm going to slide it on and just insert it inside the firearm like that. Okay? So now the recoil spring is in position. The charging handle is attached to the recoil rod, the spring, and everything's lubed up. Nice, nice. Okay. Next, you take the bolt, and again, the firing pin is exposed here, and that's where the charging handle attaches to, is right there in that notch across the top. So I'm going to turn it upside down, and I'm going to put it into the back of the receiver, and just drop it straight down. So far, so good, just like that. This is the tricky part coming up, and it's not that bad. I'm going to pull the bolt up just a little bit, and now I'm going to bring the charging handle all the way back down. Pull this back, and I'm sorry, but I have to do it where I can see it. And I'm basically just pull it all the way back and lock the bolt into that notch that we talked about. And once you do that, that bolt is ready to go. Perfecto. All right, so you saw earlier that my buffer was really torn up pretty good. I mean, it's destroyed from thousands and thousands of rounds. So I have a new buffer pin right here. This little rubber part's the buffer, and there's a buffer pin that goes down through the center, right? We saw that before. Looks like this. That's inside this tube already. I'm going to try and install it like this. First thing I'm going to do is put some oil on it, just to kind of keep it, mainly that's to rejuvenate the rubber, keep it pliable, and it makes it a little bit easier to insert. There's 2 holes in the back here. You'll notice that the 2 holes that are on the top of this, it's actually the bottom because I'm upside down. These 2 holes on the bottom, those are for the trigger. The one on top, when I turn it upside down, now it's the one on the bottom, is where the buffer pin goes. And I'll show you all of that in just a second. Oh yeah, that went right in. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. The buffer pin is in place. Let me get all this oil off of myself. Now you can see that buffer pin is in the back here. See it? When the bolt comes back, it hits that buffer pin instead of smacking into the back of the receiver, saving the bolt and the receiver, quite frankly. So it just pounds that rubber buffer, and eventually when they go bad, you throw it away and you get a new one. There's 3 for $10 or something like that. Okay, that looks pretty good. So that's it. So this part's together. Next, we're going to add the trigger. So the trigger has 2 holes. There's one here and one here. That's where those trigger pins go through. We're going to take this and put it together, put it in the position, line the holes up. Line those holes up. You want to make sure that your extractor is in the right position and the hammer's cocked all the way back. And I'm going to go ahead and just slide that in position, just like that. Oh, we got a pin popping out, see? Those pins come out. If it doesn't go in easily, something's not right. Let me start again here. So now I'm going to take the trigger and put it inside the receiver. make sure all my pins are where they belong. Everything looks good. And boom, it goes right up inside. No problems. It's not forcing it. It's nice and easy. We're going to take our 2 trigger pins, right? Remember mine have screws on the ends of them. And I'm going to insert the trigger pins. 1, 2. They go right in, no problem. And I'm going to turn the whole thing over. And I'm going to kind of hold my fingers on these pins so they don't fall out. And I'm going to get my screws, and now I got to get my glasses again because it's getting a little too small for me to do without them. Start my screw there. Take my 1/16 Allen key. I'm going to go ahead and crank those right down nice and snug. You don't want them coming out in the middle of a match, so you want to get them a little snug. Some people use Loctite on them too, if you have threaded pins. Not everybody has threaded or pins with screws in each end, although I highly recommend them. We'll screw that one down. Nice, nice. Give it a little extra juice. Double check this one. I'm going to flip it over and just make sure these screws are tight too. They are, but just double checking. If there's going to be a problem, let's have it right now. Wipe all the excess oil off the outside. Wipe my trigger guard off and my trigger. Even the side of old Seymour here. That's all I have for now. Thank you for stopping by. And remember to like, subscribe, and do what?
Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you.
Make it. TwoGunTerry!